Y'all, we are back with another episode of Love and Marriage Huntsville. Okay. I believe this is episode 12 of this season, which means that I think we have about three more episodes to go. This to me was one of those episodes that reminded me of classic reality TV, wherein I felt like I was just following story. And I didn't mind it per se, but it was just an interesting episode where I felt like there wasn't a lot happening, but reality TV is at a weird space, right? When there's an episode that occurs where there's a lot of drama and chaos, people talk about it being ratchet and they get angry, but the ratings be good. But then you have an episode like this, which it's not really a filler episode, but it is an episode coming off an explosion. And so typically I always think when you have a reality TV series, the episode after a major explosion, especially the one as big as we saw last week with Stormy and her aunt, which continues, and her aunt and her mom and her cousin this week, I feel like when you come off an episode like that, you kind of need a breather. You kind of this to me was a breather episode. Um, for that reason, I'm gonna give it an 8. I think I'm gonna give it I guess a solid 8. And we got some interesting things that I think we hadn't touched on before, some new elements that we'll kind of go over, but some elements of the story have not changed because the characters haven't really changed their perspective. And basically, Kimmy still got to check Maurice because Maurice, to me, I just feel like he plays a lot of mind games and I don't really understand them. Like a lot of times he comes across like man child, right? And what I mean by that is clearly he's a grown man. Clearly he has thriving businesses or and whatnot and woo woo. And that's great. But when we're talking about his interactions with his wife on the television screen only, okay? So when I do talk about these people, I'm talking about what I see on the screen or what they display on social media or what is printed in the news. Those are essentially the three types of elements that I talk about on this channel, unless we're doing an interview and we get something from that as well. So those are the four types of information that we kind of have to base our assessments on. Now, again, for those of you guys who may be new here, I don't talk about these people as though I know them in real life unless I do know them in real life. So I can only go by what I'm seeing on the screen. And on the screen, it's giving man child, man. It's giving man child. And it's giving mind games to me. But that's just me. You know, Kimmy seems to be able to navigate those landmines and those mind games with relative ease. But as a viewer, it's frustrating. It's really, really, really frustrating to watch because it's been going on for literally the entirety of the series. And I'm just kind of like, man, like we need to switch up with you. You know what I'm saying? We need to switch up with you, wherein you start really taking some responsibility and really, because you are the man of the house, you have got to set the example for your son when it comes to the essence of being a man. Yes, there are instances where people grow up without fathers and they grow up to still be well adjusted young men. And there is nothing wrong with that. I'm not coming down on single parent households because those are circumstances that are sometimes beyond their control and they're sometimes based on choice. There is nothing wrong with a one parent household. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying in this instance, where the man is in the home and you are relying so much so on Kimmy to seemingly be the backbone for the disciplinary actions, that needs to come from you, especially as the biological parent. For as much as the bonus parent can participate, in my mind, it needs the discipline, it is interesting to hear this conversation juxtaposed with listening to Martell talk about what got him out of trouble was joining ROTC. And maybe it's about time for y'all to let go of this quasi boot camp that y'all done created and put him in some type of program where he can learn the disciplines that he needs to excel. But we also got to talk about some other issues that Monster got that I think were brought to light in this episode that I think are go beyond just him seeming lazy. I think there's an issue with him missing his mom. Growing up maybe with his mom and now being, you know, essentially put into a whole new situation and maybe missing his mom. You know what I'm saying? So I think there's a lot more to it. And when I think about the family counseling that needs to happen with him, I do think that, yes, the family counseling probably needs to happen with Kiowa and with Maurice first. And I know I'm putting the cart before the horse in this episode, but it's just, this is my free flowing thoughts as I'm just finishing the episode. And I'm like, I agree with Kimmi, as I do in most instances, because she typically makes the most sense. Y'all go to therapy with him first, and then you guys figure out how to best co-parent together, and then you bring in the bonus parents after you figured out how you guys are going to work through the issues as the primary parents, the biological parents, because you guys are still involved in the lives. Then you bring in the bonus parent. But that's just how I feel about it, right? Y'all let me know what y'all think in the comment section down below, and if y'all think I'm making any sense at all. We get the continuation, the beginning of I did rate the episode of 8, so let's get into it. We continue with like a little 2-minute segment of this continuation of the argument and the family blow up with Miss Betty, Aunt Lisa, Stormy, and her cousin Junior as a result of Stormy having to fire Junior. And again, as we talked about it before, sometimes hiring and working with family does not do the best. When you hire family, you have got to make sure that the family that you are hiring is meant for the role that you're trying to put them in, right? So let's say, for instance, you have a highly organized individual. I have someone who is in my family, my cousin. She is highly organized. I trust her like with everything. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like those are her strengths. So I've hired her in a position that makes the most sense, right? Does it make sense for Junior to be doing that job? It didn't sound like it was something that he was really enjoying. So no, get him out of these positions. And I know sometimes when we get in these positions and Stormy is in a wonderful position to probably help her family, but at the end of the day, Miss Stormy, like, you got to understand that, sometimes, especially as the CEO, you got to make the tough decisions. And you know the work. You and Courtney know the work. It sounds like. So if the people ain't able to do the work like you able to do the work, don't hire them just because they family. As much as we want to look out for family in those instances, sometimes it's best to let family find their own way. Okay. Because if they not equipped for the job, if they ain't got the skills, the strength, the wherewithal, the discipline, the dedication, then it's never going to work. Never going to work. And in terms of Aunt Betty and Aunt Lisa and Miss Betty, Stormy, you got to let them work through their issues on their own. As much as you might want to take vacations down to the Caribbean seas with these people, you're gonna have to let them go. You're gonna have to maybe travel one time with Miss Betty and then one time with Aunt Lisa. Fly Aunt Lisa down after Miss Betty leave. You know what I'm saying? You're just gonna have to get used to it, because until Miss Betty and Aunt Lisa work through their own issues, then you gonna have they gonna always have this problem, and you need to just stay out of it, because these are issues that are rooted in whatever issues they had growing up or in their past. Okay. The other thing I'm gonna say, Stormy, and I said it before, is keep your mama out your personal business. Your mama really don't belong unless, like I said last week, she the manager on duty. Then she probably don't really need to have much say so in how you running your business, because for this reason, you, it seemed, in my opinion, have been able to manage and maneuver your business successfully on your own with the help of your husband, the way y'all run things, and you don't need Miss Mama in the business supervising your friendships or your employees. Okay. Keep your mama where your mama is best. As your mama, baby, as your mama. You know what I'm saying? Just my opinion. Martell heads to therapy. Now, this was an interesting scene to me because one of the things that we've never, at least I've never, ever seen from Martell is his complaining about Miss Marlene. Don't nobody ever talk bad about Miss Marlene, but he did today because we learned that now there was an issue with the sitter. Okay. Now, my question for you as the audience, was the sitter his mama? Because it seemed like the issue was one and the same with the person. Basically, he says that it sounded, or at least it sounded like to me, there was an argument when he asked his mom to take care of his kids. So was that the issue? Was that the, I mean, or was the sitter late or couldn't make it? And then Miss Marlene was supposed to be the backup, which I think this might be the case. And Miss Marlene was like, I ain't got no time for to do that today. I'm trying to be retired, baby. You know how Miss Marlene talk, baby. Which is so interesting to me because Martell got so many issues with all of these extra people he alleges that Melody have the babies with, that, oh, now you having some issues with the sitter. Oh, oh. But apparently it's even bigger issues than that, because he feels like he's doing and that, and the third from Miss Marlene, and it's not being reciprocated. And I was like, now see, again, I like it when we find out new pieces of information, because this is obviously something that he's been feeling, but we never heard him vocalize before. So I like when I find something out new in a scene. Do I want him to have issues with his mama? Absolutely not. But I do feel like I like the truth of the matter. And if the truth is that this is how he feeling, then that's what I want to know. And these are the types of things that I want to see when I'm watching reality TV. I want to see truth. I want to see a new reveal. I want to see, this is how I've been feeling and I never voiced it. Because this is a side of them that we haven't seen, that we're going to have to hopefully see them work out. The therapist does encourage him to, work through some of his relationships, because, as often happens with a lot of us, when we go through major changes in our life, like, for Martell, a divorce, and possibly everything that he's gone through, in between time, and as he's coming out, typically these types of things change you, either for the better or for the worse. And whatever the case may be, they have changed him. And so now he needs to allow these people to get to know the he that he is, the person that he is today, versus the person that maybe they were used to or accustomed to, before he was a single man who was on the prowl. Well, single slash booed up and bayed up with Playbay Sheree. Okay. So Maurice and Kimmi head to wine and dine with Marceau and Tisha. Now, the biggest issue is, well, one thing I didn't like was, I guess they was making some type of glasses or something like that. And the lady was like, don't, dish, you're gonna have to wash these by hand or something like that. Don't put them in the dishwasher. And Maurice was like, well, that's your department. I don't, I guess, whatever roles you got in your household is whatever roles you got in your household. And who am I to, complain about it or whatever like that? But it just be sounding so 1960s Mad Men, Flintstones. It just feel like, I don't know. I don't like stuff like that. It's like, man, you can get up in there and wash some dishes too. And Kimmi points out, well, Monster could probably use seeing you do some of these things, because he not doing these things, maybe because he not seeing you do these things. And this what it goes back to, in my mind, if we learned later on that Kiowa did a lot of things for him, in the spirit of being nurturing. But Maurice is asking for this man to be for Monster to be an adult, and it's like, but he still needs that adult training, and it don't sound like it's coming from Maurice. It sounds more like it's coming from Kimmi, or the expectation is that it's supposed to come from Kimmi because she the one who there. Okay, Maurice is just taking him to school and back. That's what it sounds like. And he's like, well, we spend hours talking. And I'm like, well, is school 4 hours away? I mean, how far is school? How long are these conversations? And quite frankly, when we learn later on that Monster feel like he ain't got nobody to talk to, I'm like, well, what kind of conversations are you having, Maurice? I mean, that's the question that I'm asking. But anyway, I digress. Marceau and Letitia arrive and they want to know what's the tea. And Maurice reveals that Kimmi doesn't feel comfortable punishing Monster. And Kimmi is over it. Listen, I mean, I don't know how many bonus parents feel comfortable, punishing per se, the bonus child, their stepchildren. It just don't always work that way. Number one, I'm sure she's clued into the fact that he may not feel as comfortable with her, particularly as comfortable as he may feel with his father and his mother. So I'm sure she wants to be respectful of that, as she would have wanted Maurice to be respectful of Jalen. So I totally get where she's coming from. And I get also why she's over him and the way he be presenting these situations. And that's why, again, I titled this Mind Games, because I always feel like he's playing these little games that he think be funny and cute, and they don't be. Letitia does think that Kimmi should be able to talk to Kiowa about, these issues and whatnot. And I get it, but I think that these conversations need to happen between Maurice and Kiowa, and not necessarily. And again, Kimmi should be brought in, as backup, on the situation. Like, these are the rules and regulations that we are establishing for Monster. Kimmi, we would love if you could participate in the backup of these things. But I, Maurice, especially as the father, am going to take the lead. And then Kiowa is now agreeing, as we will see in the end, to come down a bit more to also provide that level of parenting that, Monster so clearly wants. And so Marceau also thinks that this time, Maurice needs to be there for this meeting of the minds with Kiowa, because last time apparently Kiowa was late and he had to go, and so Kimmi had to manage the conversation by herself, which I also thought was pretty foul. Like, if you knew that you had this meeting, if you knew that you had this meeting set up, why would you set up another meeting after that? You need to set it up on a different day. Period. Martell, has a meeting with his brother. We learned that his brother is out on parole. We learned that his brother is recently married and really wants to get on the straight and narrow. So Martell invites him to the Black with a QUE Business Expo, which I do think was nice. I mean, I don't recall seeing Martell's brother before. So again, new information here. So again, this meeting that's being set up with Monster, Kimmi, and Kiowa. Initially, it seemed like I was like, Monster really doesn't seem like he is really receptive. My initial judgment was that maybe there seemed to be a general sense of malaise, or just like not really, or disinterest from him. And maybe it's the cameras. Maybe it's the fact that he has these who he feels like adults are talking at him. I don't really know what it is, but there's a level of discomfort. And I feel like in this instant, Maurice was for once trying to exert some control and dominance in the situation. But I felt like it was too little too late, because it really seemed to have zero impact on Monster in this particular situation. There's some talk about whether or not, Kiowa babies him and what Maurice expects of him. And I just feel like, again, I've already told you my perspective on this is that, they need to do some family counseling and therapy to really get to the issues and the root of, for Maurice, he's like, we're all one, we are a family like a giant tree springing out to the sky. And the reality is, Monster is a product of two divorced parents. We need to deal with that. And we need to deal with what that means for him to be uprooted from one location to the next, especially one where there are cameras present. Okay. We need to understand, how does he feel about not being with his mom, who he was probably with, I mean, much more prior to them being on the show. We need to discuss how he feels about a blended household. We need to discuss, how they can make this situation better. And I think we finally do get to some real resolution, at least when he has a private dinner with Kiowa, his mom, who he clearly feels much more comfortable with. And he opens up to her and he lets her know that he would like to be there more. And I think that he would like her to be there more. And I think this is the answer. This is a step in the right direction. It's not Kimmi, doing more or being the backbone and punishing him when he don't do things right. Honestly, a lot of that should fall on Maurice, especially, again, if you are the man of the house, you need to be setting the precedent for raising a young man. You want this man to grow up and be and represent as a king. Well, you need to learn. Well, you need to start treating him in a way that trains him how to be a king. You understand what I'm saying? And because Maurice, you are present, you need to be able to say, like, bro, like, this is what it means to be a man, and I'm going to teach you. I'm going to show you how to do this thing and do it well. And you're gonna have the support of two amazing women who can help also guide you and teach you also how to treat women, teach you, help you feel more nurtured and supported as well. Like, it can be a team effort, but again, I do think that it starts with Maurice and Kiowa. I cannot re-emphasize that enough. We do get a scene that's split in the middle of this um between Courtney and Stormy, where they kind of reflect on, the ramifications of that meeting that she had with her mom and her mom's sister. And it's just like, y'all gonna have to, if y'all know what to do with y'all business. Y'all know, just stop hiring family, hire some people that's really qualified to do these things, and keep it pushing. I mean, that to me is the answer here in this situation. Um, but the end conversation, to me, I think, is one that was most interesting to me, and it really kind of put me in the mind frame of why I titled the thumbnail "Mind Games," is because, Maurice wants all the bonus parents to be involved, and Kimmi has to remind him, like, yo, I was the one who was at the last, family meeting, and you were not. And then he says, well, maybe you and Kiowa need to meet more by yourselves to work through the issues that you've had historically. And Kimmy's like, I don't have no issues to work through. We've already gone through that, and the past is in the past. And Maurice is like, well, that means you're not over it. No, it doesn't. It means that, why are we still harping on this issue? The main issue that we got right now is an issue with Monster. Why are you trying to make this an issue between Kimmi and Kiowa when we don't even need to go through that again? So, of course, we're going to get them rehashing their issues next week. Okay. Um, but the thing about it is, what she wanted to know from him, well, what exactly do you think that I need to be over? Okay. What exactly is it? I don't need no fluff from you, none of your normal huffing and puffing and not saying nothing. Give me what it is that you think that I need to get over with Kiowa. And I was really waiting for an answer. I really didn't get one because it was a to be continued. So I guess we just gonna have to wait and see what happens on the next episode of Love and Marriage and Mind Games. And we'll see how it goes on. All right. So with that being said, I will catch you all in the next video.